Hey guys, today I wanted to do a ranking of all of the segments in the VHS series. If you're unfamiliar with what that is, it's a horror anthology that's like also found footage. And it's a bunch of horror directors or just directors in general that have come together in these movies and they have their own short segment and they get this a lot of time to do with whatever they want with it and do their own like story. Um, I'll get into each of these 21 segments. I'm not doing the wraparound if you're familiar with what that is. So each movie has a wraparound or a framed narrative that ties all the segments together. They're all kind of weak, if I'm being honest, the frame narratives. The only ones that are like, all right, VHS 2 is definitely the strongest. VHS 1 is like, all right, once you get to it, it just takes a little bit. Viral is terrible. There really isn't one for 99, and then VHS 94 is like got some kind of bad acting. So I put them here in order of which like they appear in the movies. So the first five is the original VHS, and then the next four are VHS 2, the next three are VHS viral, the next four are VHS 94, and then the last five are VHS 99. Um, if I had to like rank the movies even, other than viral, they're all pretty much equal to me because they all have strong points and weak points. So we'll get into it. How I'm going to rank these, I'll tell you as I go. I'd love to see your ranking those. We get, as you listen to how I feel about these segments, I'd love to hear what you think about them. So I'm going to rank them actually from like favorite to least favorite in this tier also. So you'll see how I feel about them. So starting off with the very first segment in VHS 1, actually my favorite in the entire series because of how much it blew me away when I first watched it. I so I'm just gonna put this right away here. So I heard about the series, but I never really like watched it, and then I was told about at work from someone, not where I work now, but my last job at a movie theater. I had a friend. He was like, if you're looking for like some really good like variety of horror in like a short, like 20-minute segment, um, and you want something like different, check out VHS and the VHS series. And I watched that like 2, maybe even 3 years ago now. I watched the first one, and I think I watched the second one, and I was like, okay, I don't know how I feel about these. I was like, but the one Amateur Night really stood out to me, and I was like, that one was really good. And honestly, if it wasn't for this segment, I may have never come back to the series because I was like not really into it at the time. But whenever I did rewatch the all of these movies or get into them now, I really started liking them. As you can see, I bought a shirt and I was like, wow, I really like these. So not only is Amateur Night the one that got me, like interested when I first watched the movie, but it brought me back because I really wanted to watch that segment again. I bought all the movies, and so for me, Amateur Night probably will never be beat just because of how kind of impactful it was. The actress who played Lily did such a good job of playing that creepily, the way she says, I like you. I showed this movie to my friends a few nights ago, and they were like, dude, that girl's so creepy. I'm like, just waiting to see. And then they were like, holy crap. And uh, yeah, this segment is really strong for me. Obviously, my favorite. Um, and I think is definitely like most people would say is the best in the movie. There are some problems. All of them. This early one, I think, especially does a lot of the VHS like tracking on the screen, like the really poor quality. I hope that they kind of like cut that out in some of these newer ones, like in '85. And you'll see is why some of these actually will fall because of it. It's just this is the exclusion to that. So second is actually the complete opposite, and that's Second Honeymoon. Now this isn't like a bad segment. It's just not really horror. It's like nothing really happens, and it's not like the last. So I guess it would be here. It's not like the worst segment. It's just nothing really happens. So it's funny. One of my favorite modern horror directors is David Bruckner, and he directed Amateur Night. I had no idea. And then Ty West, the only thing I like by him is Pearl, and I honestly think his movies are very overrated. Didn't know it was him until this most recent viewing in Second Honeymoon, which is this one. Um, is one of my least favorites, and it's just coincidence. And I was like, wow, that's funny how that played out. I just give it an F, not because it's a like bad segment, but it just doesn't show horror really until the last like 30 seconds. It's like a 20-minute short or segment, and nothing happens really for like I would say 18 and a half to 19 minutes. It's just really boring. I just don't like it. And then the like twist. So I'll get into spoilers just because um, she turns on her boyfriend. It's like a couple that goes on a like honeymoon, and they rent like a hotel, and you think the whole time that they're like a happy couple. You kind of get hints that something's like up, because there's like a girl that shows up, and he like the boyfriend or the husband's like, yeah, she didn't come across as physically threatening, but there was something about her. Well, it turns out that the wife and this girl are actually like a couple, and she lets the girlfriend in to kill the boyfriend or the husband, and it was like, okay, well, that was the last like 10 seconds. It was like that took too long. So next is, again, it's not as bad as I'm ranking it, and really, there's only two on here that are straight like kind of bad. Um, I'm giving this a D. This next one, it's called Tuesday the 17th, which is obviously a spoof or a spin-off or whatever of Friday the 13th. I'm giving it a D simply just because, like, if I'm being honest, I really don't like the Friday the 13th movies very much. I've watched the first three, and other than the second one having moments, I just don't really like them. I just don't find them like enjoyable. Now I hear they get better. I'm sure I'll watch them one day. But so this is like a group of teens go up to this lake, and the one, like, her and her friends were attacked by something. It's called the glitch, um, and it's basically the equivalent of Jason, like, was completely invisible, other than being seen through the lens of a camera, like briefly, and it's just like a glitch. And it's like interesting, but it's too much just teen stuff where they're just like sitting around smoking pot and talking about like sex, and it's like, okay, whatever. Like I didn't really feel like I liked any of the characters, and then it just ends in like just kind of like your very expected way where they all just end up dying, and yeah, I don't know. I didn't really find it to be all that special. If this is one of your favorites, I get it. It's not like bad. I'm ranking them in a way that how I feel about them. I'll tell you the two that are bad. They're in the same movie. So, and then next is one that I actually found to be pretty strong, and that is, it's got the longest title in the entire series, and I really definitely could have shortened this, but it's called "The Sick Thing That Happened to Emily When She Was Younger." Why it could have been just called like "The Sick Thing" or "What Happened to Emily" or something. I don't know. If you really wanted it like something like that, you could have named it, because yeah, that's just like entirely too long. The other ones are like Terror, Shredders, Amateur Night, Storm Drain, and then this one is just like half of a paragraph. But this one is actually one of my favorites. I think this is so I actually have it written down here of like 1 through 21. So this is number 6 for me, and I do really like this one just because when I first watched it, it was keeping my interest. After the first or the middle two segments, which is Second Honeymoon and Tuesday the 17th, I was like, man, this series really went from like peaked for me with Amateur Night, then just dropped with these two. And when I watched them with my friends, they totally agree with me. They're like, dude, what's with these middle two segments? They suck. And I was like, yeah, I just don't like them. I was like, the one isn't bad. It's not my thing, which is this Tuesday the 17th. But we all were like, what is going on? Well, they were. I obviously knew, because I know that those children are actually like alien human hybrids. But they were like, what is going on? And so Emily and her boyfriend are on like a Skype call. And she's like, I think my house is haunted. And they're like in mid conversation. And then a kid kind of like runs in the room and like slams the door. And she freaks out. And then, like, as days go by, she keeps calling him back. She's like, I've got pain here. And then she's got like a bruise on her arm. And she like digs at it. And she's like, a whole like, she opened up her arm. And he's like, you can't do that. And she once again calls and says that, hey, I'm gonna walk around my house, and if you see anything, let me know. Well, there's these like alien hybrid things, but they just look like ghosts. And then the twist is that he's helping these alien things, and uh, they're basically using the different girls because he does this with other girls. You find out as like vessels to impregnate them, or like I can't think of the right word, but to use them to make more alien hybrids. And um, while I think it would have been kind of cool to see it as ghosts, you do find out a little bit later on that the one ghost segment that they have coming up, it's a few from here, just it didn't work in that one. So maybe they did go the right direction because I really liked the sick thing that happened to Emily when she was younger. So that one's going to be number 6 out of 21 and falls in B for me. Next is 103198, and this one for me falls ninth. So I'll tell you real quick what the other two are because I realized I didn't do that. Second honeymoon for me is 19 of 21. It's just like I said, it's just boring. Tuesday the 17th is 17th. So, but 103198 is a group of friends that are out on Halloween and they're looking for like a party that they hear about that's supposed to be a Halloween party, obviously. And they go into this house and like it's completely like empty, and they're seeing like the guy who's got the camera is like seeing weird things, and he's like, "What the heck?" They hear like people talking upstairs. They go up to the attic, and there's like they think it's just like a player or like acting that's going on, and they're like chanting along with it. And then the people turn around and they're like, "You can't be here," and it turns out they're performing an exorcist, and you think, or at least the characters think, like they're torturing this girl, but then they go back to save her, and some crazy stuff starts happening. Like once they're taking her down the steps, like arms are coming out of the wall, and you're getting this feeling like something's not right. They help her escape, and she like turns their car off on the train tracks, and she's like walking away. She gets out with the doors being like locked. They can't get out, and the train comes and just runs over them or runs through their car and kills them all. But I heard there's like an alternate ending to some of these, and I'll watch them at some point. But I did a rewatch of all of these, which I've actually I shouldn't say that. The only one that I've only seen one time, which is VHS 99, I just watched the first time like 2 nights ago. I got a subscription for Shudder just so I could watch this, and 85 is coming out soon, so but yeah, this one's pretty strong. Like I said, this one falls at number 9 for me. I'll still give it a B. Um, I think it's a little bit like the effects are a little bit cheap, and I feel like it's not too long before you get to where like the house is. But I feel like they could have cut like the first like minute where they're all just hanging out at a barbecue. It would have been kind of fun to just see them like getting dressed for Halloween, and then hurry up the part where they get to the house. That's one kind of thing is maybe I'm just super impatient. You'd think for having like short segments, I'd be like, oh, I've sat and watched three, and actually I've watched 4 hour movies before. But like when it comes to like, I know this is a short segment. Let's just get to this horror. Sometimes I like the slow build. Sometimes I don't. This is one of those segments where it was like, just trim like a minute or two off and it would have been perfect. So, um, next is the first segment in VHS 2. It's called Phase 1 Clinical Trials. This one falls at number 15 for me, and this is the one that I was talking about that I said that the like ghost thing doesn't work. They did a kind of a not great job with how they made the ghosts. So this guy is like has to have an eye transplant, and it's basically a camera in your eye, and that's actually the director that they use, or he uses himself as the main character. His name's Adam Wingard. I know he did one of the segments in part 1, but I don't know which one it was off the top of my head. And he basically like has to live his life with this eye. Well, he starts seeing things, and this girl that he meets like shows up at his house and's like, "Are you seeing things? Um, you're seeing people?" And she's like, "I have a same thing, but it's my eardrum." And she's like, "I have basically a fake eardrum or whatever." And she's like, "I hear them." And so she's like, "I know how to like make them go away." And so they start having sex, and then like they wake up the next morning and she's like drowning, or actually I think it's still at night. Just like some time goes by, and she's like drowning in the pool. He can't save her, and then he like pulls out his eye or something. Or he digs out his eye, and then they kill him anyway. I don't think this one's like bad. I just feel like it's not the best. Whereas like that VHS one starts off with, I think, the strongest one. This one starts off with possibly the weakest. Now it's not bad because none of them in VHS two are bad. I just think it's kind of like, now that I've seen it a few times, I'm like, it's a little bit cheap, and the whole kind of like sex thing is like, I don't hate that. I can watch that stuff. I don't care, but it's just like, like that doesn't really seem to be necessary. Why this girl is just like shows up and it's like, hey, let's. I know how to make them go away. Let's have sex. It's like, okay, whatever. But next is, I'm not a big zombie person, but this one's actually really well done. This segment is called A Ride in the Park, and it's a guy on a bicycle. He's on the phone with his wife or girlfriend, I don't remember, and he hangs up. And as he's riding his bike through like this park, all of a sudden, a woman's like, "Hey, I need your help. My husband or boyfriend was attacked, and um, I need you to call 911 or whatever." And then he like looks up and he sees all these like zombies coming out of the woods, and she starts throwing up, and he's like focused on that. And when he turns his attention back towards her, she like jumps on him, bites his neck. He gets turned into a zombie. Because he's got a GoPro, you're seeing all this from like first person. You see him change from human to zombie, and then he goes off and starts killing people, turning them into zombies, and then it ends with him like kind of snapping back to like realizing that what has happened to him, and he kills himself. And it's actually a pretty good segment. I have it at number 8. So, um, for me, not liking almost anything at all zombies. Like I said, I really don't get into literally like anything that's zombies. Maybe like Resident Evil is the exclusion to that. But yeah, this one's actually pretty good because of the way they did it with the GoPro, and it would be cool to see them do some more stuff like that. And I'm sure that they've used GoPros plenty, but this one is like the one that's most noticeable. So the next one is a really strong segment. I think this is probably, if it came to a vote, which one would probably, like the majority of fans of the series say which one is the best one. I think they would go with this one. It's called Safe Haven, and if you've not seen the series, this one is probably the most absolute bonkers one, but that's kind of what makes it great. So, a documentary crew gets to go to this like compound where this like cult leader, he's like interviewing them, and the guys, when they're interviewing him, he's sitting at like a cafe drinking like a glass of milk that's like this tall, and like the way he's just like interacting with them and staring at the camera is like super awkward. And so they go to this compound, and it's like a bunch of women and small like teens to small children, and there's some guys there, but they, it's like a school almost, and they're doing this interview, and this guy's just acting like super weird. He's just like not answering them sometimes, and all of a sudden, like an alarm goes off, and the guy's like, it's time, my children." He like rips his shirt off, just attacks this guy, and then it just goes absolutely nuts. People are running around with guns, killing each other. Um, there's a like demon goat baby thing that chases the one guy down, and he's like, "Daddy" or "Dada" or whatever he says. But it's like, it's crazy. I have to give it an A just because it is so well done. It's in the series, for me, it's number 4. It was number 2 until I saw VHS 99 and uh, 94. There's segments in those that I really like. So, um, next here, one second. I'm like super picky about it being like centered in there. Next is Slumber Party Alien Abduction. Now, this one would be a lot better if, one, the acting was better, but they're children, so you can't really fault them. They're just really annoying. Two, the ending of this. I hate seeing animals die, especially dogs. And they have a GoPro strapped to a dog the whole segment, and a kid or a woman, I can't remember, is holding the dog, and when she gets abducted by the alien, she drops it from like 100 feet to its death, smacks off the ground, and you hear it whimpering. I hate hearing that. That's like the worst sound to me. So because of that, I always have to like give it a lower rating than probably it is. But this has some really strong. The sound when they're abducting people is like really well done. And then the first sighting of the alien, kid jumps in the water and the water's all like dark, and all of a sudden you just see like a hand and like this weird gray figure coming out of the water or in the water, and then he comes back or his friend jumps in between him and the alien, and so then you don't for a while you don't see anything else, and you're like, what was that? And probably the best shot is where the kid later on in the segment like drowns, and the sister's giving him like CPR, and at the end of the dock, you just see this thing like there's just flashes of light. It's like crawling or like creeping up the dock towards them. Um, so because of the things I don't like and the things I do like, it would be probably a high B if the dog didn't die. If they literally just didn't kill off the dog, it would at least be like a B plus. But because they killed the dog, I had to drop it to a C, and it's number 13 on my list because of that. So I just don't like watching dogs die. It really is not my thing. I literally like the John Wick movies. I watched the first one without knowing that the beagle got killed in such a brutal way, and they showed it. And I had a beagle for 15 years, and yeah, watching that was like, yeah, I've never watched John Wick because as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, jeez. It's like that was. I can watch literally anything else. Like literally nothing messes with me, but watching like a dog die, even in the like the least painful way, it's like, geez, I can't like that. That usually messes me up a little bit. Um, so next at the very first segment of the worst movie in the series, VHS Viral. So this is one that's getting an F. It's called Dante the Great. Now, again, this isn't 100% bad. It's just when you put it in a ranking with other segments that are really good and some that aren't, whatever. This one is just one of the ones that you're like, geez, what's going on? It's like a magician he's like an amateur magician who's living at like a park, like a trailer park. He's poor or whatever. And then he finds a cloak that is supposed to be of Harry Houdini, and he actually starts performing real magic. And I'm like watching this. I'm like, okay, this setup is interesting. The special effects just goes off the rail. The like weird way that the guy's always filming himself is bad. And then like the fight at the end where they're using like magic to fight each other. It's like this isn't horror, and it's really dumb. You find out that the cape is actually like possessed by a demon, and like the girl, which is his like assistant, like kills him, and she's got the cape in her. Oh, actually, she tries to like burn it or something, and then it ends back up in her closet, and a demon hand comes out and pulls her in. That ending was cool, but it was like you didn't get enough of that type of thing, where it was like just weird magician stuff. And I was like, this one was like it had potential, it just did nothing really with it. It probably is better. I should probably give it a D, but it's just like I don't really, I don't really think it's that strong. So that one for me is number 20. So next is Parallel Monsters. So I honestly didn't think this one when I first watched it was like all that great, and then I watched it again and I was like, that actually had some kind of interesting stuff in it, and the way that the face you can see there. I don't even exactly know what's going on in this one. I just know that so the whole idea of us having like different versions of ourselves in like parallel universes doing like similar things at the same time. So this guy makes like a portal to open up that other side, and the other version of him uh, is doing the same thing. So they're like talking, like meet back here in like 15 minutes, and you're expecting like something to happen, but like you never think that their worlds are like completely different, where the our world is like what we're used to, but then the other version's world of him is like they're literally like monsters, and it's their like sexual organs are monsters. Like the guy's dick is like a dragon snake thing, and the woman's vagina is like a mouth with teeth that like moves. And it's like when I first watched this, I was like, what the heck? And then seeing their like eyes is really cool, actually. So like I said, this one for me is number 12. It's definitely better than uh Slumber Party Massacre or whatever, Slumber Party Abduction. Um, so that for me, honestly, like that from like 1 through 12 is like much stronger to me than 13 on. So really, this is where I feel like they kind of start to split. Um, but yeah, this one was the one strong point for me in this series or in this movie, because my least favorite segment in the entire series is this one, Bone Storm. And for many reasons, there isn't one thing. It's just literally like the segment itself. I didn't like the characters. I hated them all. They're just a bunch of stoner skaters that, like, I just couldn't get behind what they were doing. They they go to like they living in like LA, and they're skating, and they're trying to like do basically like a jackass type thing. They're like, hey, let's go film down in Costa Rica, and they act like typical stoners. But they also like just go across the border to Mexico with like pistols. Like that's I'm sure you like can't just do that. I don't know. I've never been across the border to Mexico, but they all got guns. Which if they like lived there and did this, that'd been one thing. But like that, I was like, okay, maybe I'm just being a little nitpicky. Whatever. Kept going. I was like, we'll get into the segment. We'll see how this goes. And like they accidentally like summon like the dead, and it looks like the costumes are straight out of like Spirit Halloween. I was just like, man. And the special effects are like whatever. They're like they've all got GoPros, and they're like using their skateboards hitting skeletons. They're just like bursting into dust, and they're using like guns and stuff. And they're just like acting like this is completely normal, that they're fighting like skeletons, and that they're like tougher than these like undead things. And then it just kind of sort of ends after most of them die, except for like one or two of them. It's like, wow, that was really dumb. Uh, that was like the way basically that the movie ends. I've tried VHS Viral now twice, and other than Parallel Monsters, I really don't. The only reason I even bought it was to have all of them, and that was kind of like, wow, this sucks. Um, that one was really hard for me to get through the first time, and then the second time, knowing what it is, I was like, all right, be a little bit more patient with it. And I was like, dude, I just can't get into this. It's pretty much the only one that there's really nothing about that I like, other than the fact that it is cool seeing like someone using a gun, and it's like you see them shooting with it, but it's at the same time like a kind of nitpicked it, like I said, where it's like how'd they get a gun across the border? But maybe you can. I don't know. Maybe they just got lucky and they're just sending people through. I don't know how the border works. So that was the last like terrible segment. The rest are pretty good, or at least average. So next is one of my favorites. Is the first segment in VHS 94, and that is Storm Drain. This was number 2 until I watched VHS 99, and we'll get to that. But Storm Drain is kind of like it's horror comedy. It knows exactly what it is, and that's why I like it so much. It's this news reporter that gets the task of going down in a like storm drain. Well, to just like because she hears about or they all hear about. It's the story of the Rat Man. He's like this local legend that there's a guy who lives in the sewers that he's like half rat, half human, and they're like recording outside the storm drain, and they see like a homeless, what they think homeless people. They go in, and turns out this rat man is real. The cameraman dies, but the main woman lives, and then she goes back to the studio after they save her, and she starts just kind of like rambling on about Ratman, and they're like, "We're gonna take a break," and she like pukes up on the guy, and he's like, "What the heck?" And then she like full on vomits this brown like liquid that Ratman has. It's like his saliva onto his face, and the dude's face is just dissolving, and he's screaming. It's like hilarious, and then it ends with like probably my favorite quote in the whole series is "Hail Ratman" or "Hail Ratma." That's what it is, and it's like you wouldn't think that that's like a good quote, but it's like I don't know why it just works. It's just funny, but yeah, I like it. It's my number three in the entire series. Um, and then next we have Empty Wake. This one was pretty strong. I have it for me at number seven. Um, it's gonna go right there. So trying to get these organized a little bit better. Uh, there we go. But yeah, so Empty Wake is a like um, funeral home that they ask this girl who works there to just like cover the wake or whatever the funeral. No one's supposed to come in. It's a really bad storm coming, and he's like, "Can you just watch this body?" Basically, that's all you got to do. Well, she starts to like hear the coffin move and just weird things are going on. A guy shows up, does some like weird like ritual thing or says something in a different language. Power goes out at one point and she freaks out. But with like this part where she tries to leave because she hears the coffins just like moving. This person is definitely alive. She finds out that they killed themselves, and when she tries to leave, the door is padlocked, and this tornado is outside. Basically, she goes into the room, and it's like a basically the guy's come back to life, and he's a zombie. But the only weak part about this is the ending is very abrupt, and I'm pretty sure I get what happened, but it's just kind of like it's just too quick and sudden that the ending just happens. So um, it was much higher the first time I watched it because I was like, wow, this segment is really strong. But then the second time I was like, okay, I have to drop it just a little bit because of that ending, but it's still very good. Next is another one that a lot of people really like, and I'm not gonna say that it's bad because it definitely isn't. It's well made, and I think it's the same director that did this one, Safe Haven. It's just not really my thing. Oh, excuse me. Um, it's called The Subject. This was actually like the first time I watched this for me, straight up unwatchable. I was like, I don't know why I hate this so much. Now I watched it again last night when I rewatched VHS 94, and I was like, all right, I was definitely too hard on it because I see why people like it, and it definitely went from it didn't go to like an A, but it went to a C because I still have to take into account this was my first like um or this was like okay, my first time viewing it. I didn't like it for a reason. So there's something I don't like about it. I'm not going to go from it being one of my least favorites to my favorites, but I'm going to give it a fair shot because I definitely was unfair. And yeah, it definitely is better. It's just I don't know. It's too weird. It's not. I mean, it's horror, but it's not like I don't know. I think it's just the style that it goes for. It's very like if you're into that style, you're really gonna like it. If you're not, you're not. I'm very tired. I was up like 3 hours. But yeah, it's cool seeing basically like a scientist who or a doctor, I guess is a better way to say it. He takes people and turns them into like machine human hybrids, and tries to build, like, I wouldn't say an army maybe, but like, make his own like creations, and then like, I don't know if they're the police or whatever they are, like SWAT comes in, just goes crazy. The one girl is actually like, her head is half human, half camera. She's like filming all this. Meanwhile, there's an actual like officer with a camera showing all this, and it's like cool, but I don't know. It's just kind of too much for me. That's all. I definitely appreciated it more the second time. I was like, okay, maybe this is one that will grow on me the more I watch it. I also feel like this one is very long. This one feels like it's a good 30, 35 minutes. And the first time I watched it, I was like, damn, how long is this? I was like, this is never ending, but I didn't like it. So, um, next here is Terror, or The Terror. I can't remember. Um, so the first time I watched it, I really liked it and I was patient with it. And maybe it was just because I just got off of the subject that I didn't like. I don't know. Where the second time when I watched it, I can't stop. It was the exact opposite, where I was like, man, this is really boring. It's like, I know how this goes now, so it's like, let's get to it. But it's still good. I'm still gonna give it a B. It's number 11 for me. Let's see. Okay, so it is the last in the B. Maybe I gave it, no, actually, I gave it a C. Um, and that's why, because it did drop after this most recent viewing of it. It's just like, the beginning is really boring, and it's like a bunch of like, I wouldn't call them so much crazy as they're just very, we'll just say, I don't know, they're very strong political people. I don't know which side, you probably Republican. Um, they're trying to like overthrow their government. They get guns from the, like, this police officer who follows their cause, and they are using an ultimate weapon, which is a vampire. They basically subdue him before he becomes powerful. They extract his blood because it's explosive in the sunlight, and they planned on doing this and putting it in like a bunch of, like, buildings that uh, belong to the government. And um, well, they all get drunk the night before they plan on doing this, and obviously that doesn't go well. The thing gets out, starts killing all of them. That part is cool. It's just leading up to it takes way too long. It's like too long of a segment. I honestly wouldn't hate it if these movies were like an hour and a half. If they cut the wraparound, I'd be okay with it. I do like that it's there, but I didn't mind that they did get rid of it for the most part in VHS 99. Um, if they just kind of went from segment to segment, even, that would be okay with me. Uh, and kind of shortened some of the segments that just don't need to be this long. There's like a full like 5 minute part in this where they're just kind of like they're just walking through the street while the guy's in the van like filming the guy out there just like talking. I get why they're doing it, to show what their plan is. Cut something in this because it does go on for too long. I do like it though, even though I'm talking a lot of crap on it a little bit. It is good. It also though does look a little bit crappy. That is one of my complaints. It looks like it's filmed with VHS. So that was the last one for VHS 94. And the last five here are all VHS 99. So this one starts off with a segment that had a really great idea. I like rock music. I know this is more punk. So I thought I was going to really like it. The down part of it is it goes too heavily into, or the bad part of it is it goes too heavily into the whole, let's make this look like it's on VHS. Let's put some heavy like tracker, or like the tracking, and like, let's just make it look like this tape has been like rewound 10,000 times. And that really drew, because it's in a dark place where it's being filmed, and two, when you got lines going down the screen, you can't like see anything half the time. But the segment is a good idea. So it's like a punk rock band that they go to this like building that it burned down with a previous punk rock band in it 2 years prior that supposedly is haunted. And Three of the four band members just take this as a joke, but one of them is like, "No, you shouldn't do this." They go down there and they're like messing with him the whole time. They're just like messing with this kid, and he tries to leave, but right as that happens, they're up on stage, and you hear like one of the ghosts say, which is the songs in this are actually pretty decent for me. Not liking punk, this is actually like decent music, and this is like this feels like this is one of the more '90s things in the whole series, or in the two movies that takes place in the '90s. They're doing like jackass type stuff, skating around. They're listening to like punk rock, like that kind of music, and they're just acting like a bunch of idiots. Um, but then this band, you find out that they really are haunting it, and the one kid just gets like flung up in the air and like explodes or something, and then they all get killed off, all four of them, and their bodies get reassembled, and they're like basically like they've been possessed, and they're like puppets playing up on stage, even though their limbs are like basically just being held together by just the ghost band members, just kind of like sticking their arms back in place. They're playing instruments while their arms like just doing this type weird motion. It's cool. I like that. I just really wish that they didn't go so heavily into let's make this look like it's a VHS tape, because it would have been much higher for me. Um, I liked the band that they got. The name of the band was called Bitch Cat. That was the ghost band. I don't remember what the band was called. I think they were called like Rake or something. The one that got killed by the ghost band. Um, but like the song by Bitch Cat is actually pretty good, and like their like whole thing, which this is one of the cool segment or parts of the segment. They're like leaning over the camera, like with their arms around each other, and they're like doing some like basically like pregame thing, and they're saying "play or die," and they're chanting it. And the first time you see them do it, it's they're alive, but then the second time it's flickering back and forth between them alive and then them as like zombies or ghosts or whatever, and it's pretty cool. So I liked that one. I just really wish they didn't do that. So next is, I think, a really strong segment. Now I may be giving this a little bit too high of a rating because I've only seen this one once, but it was so impressive when I watched it that I was like, wow, I really like it. It's called Suicide Bid. Um, Now it is good, and I don't think that'll ever change or anything. But maybe it won't be my second favorite forever. Or maybe I'm just because it's a recency bias thing. I guess is the right way to say it. Because Storm Drain was like, wow, this is for a while it was my number two. Same thing with Safe Haven. So what just happened there? So Suicide Bid is a bunch of sorority girls that are doing a hazing on a girl who plans on a suicide bid. I've never done anything with sororities. I never even went to like a college that had one, I don't think. Um, so they're like trying to get her to, they're messing with her because they feel that it's pathetic that she is willing to not apply to any other sororities to join theirs, and they're like the in crowd girls, and they think it's like pathetic that she wants to be one of them. And so what they do, they're like, okay, so if you stay overnight in this coffin, you'll be one of us. Meanwhile, they probably have no intention of ever doing that. They're messing with her, and it starts to rain. The cops show up, so they leave her. But because it's raining, she's in this coffin. All of a sudden, like, it starts flooding, and they gave her this box, and they're like, so if you start to get scared, open up this box and it'll make you feel better. Well, it's just filled with spiders, so that adds on top of it. But where I think the flooding is actually the scariest thing to me. Like, if you were in that situation, I would never want to drown. And if I was in a small contained space and it starts to get filled with water and there's no way out, I'd probably start panicking. But you're thinking, like, you hear this legend that they're talking about of this girl that died doing this, and um, and all of a sudden you see like a skeleton, like a body, like a, whatever you want to say, peek through like the hole in the coffin. I think it's a cross, and it's like the zombie version of this girl, whatever her name was, like Guillotine or some weird name like that. I don't know who would name their daughter Guillotine, but um, so they come back the next morning and they see that the hole's flooded, and they go into the hole to see if she's in there. She's not in there. Like, we have to take this to her grave. No one can know about this. Well, they wake up and they're all in their own coffins like she was, and now she's a zombie like the other girl. And she's like, I made a deal with her that if she'll take you guys, so you can be her, like, she can have sorority sisters or whatever. And so they all get killed by the two girls, and that's the way it ends. But I thought this one was really good because it actually brings in like two fears, or actually a bunch of different fears for people. Some people are afraid of spiders. I'm not personally. Some people are afraid of small spaces. I definitely don't like them, but I don't know if I'd say I'm afraid of them. I would never want to drown though. That is like the one for me of like the fear of drowning is like, yeah, I would not like that. Um, so, and then just like being buried alive is another one that would really suck. So, yeah, uh, this one brings a really strong, I think, idea, and that's why I put it number two, is because it's actually like when you take the realism part of it, I'm sure someone has done something stupid like this before, where they're like, "Hey, get in this coffin overnight," and then they just leave the person. Maybe not to that extreme, but something like some dumb sorority hazing that ended up in the person dying. That's I'm almost 100% sure that that has happened. So next is so this is for me the biggest disappointment in the entire series. Um, it's called Ozzy's Dungeon, and it's like a kids show that you would have seen on like Nickelodeon or something, but it's like kind of extreme. I think it was based off of a show called Legends of the Hidden Temple or something like that. So it's a game show where kids have to go through like obstacle courses. And why I was so interested is the main actor, Stephen Ogg. You'd know him from, he's most well known for Trevor in GTA. His picture's right there. You'll probably recognize him. Um, if not Trevor, he was in The Walking Dead. I didn't see that. And then I know he was also in the spinoff of Breaking Bad. Better Call Saul. Didn't see that either. I just saw like a scene with him in it. Um, but yeah, I know ever since GTA 5, a lot of people know him at least as Trevor. And I was like, all right, he's going to be some game show host for some sadistic kids show. It just takes a direction that I was not expecting. I was expecting like him to be some sadistic game show host and like send these kids to like get hurt or killed or some fucked up thing. And it's just like really weird. So like a girl gets hurt on set, breaks her leg, and they just kind of like the mother gets so like freaked out by this. She's like, my daughter's now acting career is ruined because of you. She kidnaps Stephen Ogg's character, makes him run through the whole thing in her basement. That she set up the like fake obstacle course that's like literally like got shit in it. And then she tells him he lost and she's about to kill him. And he's like, I can get you your one wish, which is if you win the obstacle course, you get a wish from Ozzy, who's in his dungeon. And it ends with like this big fat lady that's like laying on a table. And inside of her is this just like weird interdimensional like creature thing. And yeah, all of a sudden she wishes that her whole family was dead. That's just how it ends. It was like, what? I was like, I don't know. I had such high hopes for this. This is definitely like, if it wasn't for Stephen Ogg, honestly, this may have been my least favorite. I watched it twice. I was like, I'm going to give this another watch. Stephen Ogg literally saves this because he's funny in this. Like, whenever he's going through and he's watching the kids like get hurt or do whatever, he literally like this girl um is like she's going through this off the course and she keeps winning and he hates her. And he like goes to high five the one kid like Luke or Alex or whatever his name is, it doesn't matter. High fives him and then the girl's like and he just straight up ignores her. And then when she like breaks her leg, he's like, "Oh fuck!" and he starts like vomiting. He's like, "That is disgusting," and it's like funny because it's just if you know his voice, I think is what makes him funny, and I think that's what makes Trevor funny is the way he like delivers the line. And I literally he's the only one thing about this I like. Other than that, this whole segment I thought was stupid. Um, so yeah, for me it's number 18. It would be number 21 if it wasn't for Stephen O. And next at number 16, another segment I was just like bored throughout, and it's technically the wraparound in VHS 99 that becomes a segment, which I was actually okay with. I thought that was kind of cool, and for one time it being something different. It's like a stop motion thing, which was actually kind of big at this time. So I thought that was actually cool, seeing like a stop motion thing. And then it turns into a bunch of like teenage kids being perverts, creeping on their neighbor, who's this like hot woman. And then the one is like a tech guy at the time, and like installing a webcam was like high tech. You know a lot about technology, whatever. And so they install this webcam on her computer, and they're expecting to watch her get changed, which they start to see. But then she starts to like do weird things, and they're like, "What is she doing?" And then she rips her like scalp off, and turns out that she's Medusa. And you get hints at this, and I unfortunately had the twist ruined for me beforehand because I was watching something. I don't remember what. I just was watching something, and it was like a ranking of like, or like a, it was like horror movies. That's what it was. It was horror movies of 2022, and it was like, I tried to skip through because I was like, okay, I haven't seen VHS 99 yet. But whenever I got to the end, it was like, it showed Medusa, and I was like, okay. Unfortunately, now I know one of the segments has Medusa in it. When I put it together, I was like, okay, this woman is Medusa. So that kind of like takes this one a little bit down. It starts off boring, but when it gets to the whole thing with Medusa, it is cool. It's just it feels like a retread of Amateur Night, not as well done. But the final like shot of this is actually pretty cool, where she like gets close to the camera, her eyes are like glowing, and she's like got all the snakes around her. That was pretty cool. But besides that, I was like, this one wasn't that great. Um, so we're going to end here with a strong one because I actually do like this one. This one, I haven't seen the movie they just came out with. It's called Deadstream, and I keep hearing that it's really good, and it was on that list. But this segment is called To Hell and Back, and this segment starts like immediately. And I liked that a lot because I was, like I said, I was like, I'm kind of impatient at times. And by the fourth, after four in a row, too good, too bad, or whatever, I was like, okay, this has to end better because I was like, I don't want three in a row of bad. And it ends strongly. And Hell and Back is like there's a group of people doing like a ritual on the eve of Y2K, and they summon a demon. Well, they get pulled. These two like teenage kids get pulled into hell, and it's done in like a comedy slash horror way where it balances it perfectly. And I was worried that I wasn't gonna like that, and I wouldn't mind seeing a version of this that would have been taken seriously. But the comedy actually works really well, and I think they did it like not too much, but enough that it was like okay, that's funny. Like a guy sticks his hand on like a trap, like a bear trap, and he's like screaming. And then the girl that they have play, her name's Mabel, the guide through hell. She's like, why are you guys acting like such wimps? And like, they did a good job with her makeup. And then there's like the atmosphere of hell is really cool. The like creatures, how people have turned into like half demon, half like I don't know. The one dude is like completely like his face is like turned into basically like clay. It's just there's almost no features anymore, and he's like sitting on the ground. And then the ending is actually cool because they go to hell and back, so they do come back, but they needed two human sacrifices, or at least one. So one of them goes into the woman's body, who was the sacrifice, and the other one, I think, comes out as the demon or something, and they kill him. So they both die, and that's the way it ends. But I do like the segment. It's really strong. It is number 5 for me. So that is my ranking. Um, we'll go from A to F here. And so number 1, Amateur Night. Number 2, Suicide Bid. Number 3, Storm Drain. Number 4, Safe Haven. Those are all the A's. All the B's. Number 5, To Hell and Back. 6, The Sick Thing That Happened to Emily when she was younger. Number 7, Empty Wake. Number 8, A Ride in the Park. Number 9, 103198. Those are all the B's. All the C's, Shredders at number 10, Terror at number 11, Parallel Monsters at 12, Slumber Party Alien Abduction at 13, The Subject at 14, Phase 1 Clinical Trials at 15. That's all the C's. The D's, number 16 is The Gawkers, 17, Tuesday the 17th, 18, Ozzy's Dungeon. Those are the D's. And the 3 F's are Second Honeymoon, Dante the Great, and Bone Storm. So that's my ranking. I'd love to hear what your guys' ranking are. It took me a little bit to think of it or to do this. I took this like actually way too seriously. It's like I want to do this. I want to see like what my ranking is. And I also wanted to like each movie has at least one actor or two that really like steals the scene. And the first one, Lily from Amateur Night, gets like a she just really is great in that role. How creepy she plays it. And if I'm being completely honest, despite her with the when she's like human, I was still like, this girl's pretty attractive. I was like, I'd have been stupid and kept going with it until she obviously turns into a like creature. But in the second one, the guy who's the cult leader is like really sells this like creepy cult leader guy. VHS Viral, I don't know. Maybe the wife, probably the wife of the guy in Parallel Monsters. I don't know. Really, that whole movie's kind of crap. But Parallel Monsters has to be something in there because I really don't know who else it would be. VHS 94. There's a few of them. I personally would say the woman who does the Hail Ratma thing. And then VHS 99 is probably it's either the girl in the coffin or it's Mabel, which is, I think her name is also Lily, the girl in the coffin. I can't remember, but yeah, it's one of those two because she played. You have to if you're obviously that scared that you're gonna die, you have to do it well, and she does a really good job. And Mabel just kind of like is this very charismatic character. So thanks for watching. I'm pretty sure I've talked about as much with this as I can because I really started getting into this and I really enjoyed it. I will probably, once 85 comes out this year, do something and maybe keep this list up and add to it, depending on how many segments are in it. Or maybe I'll just rank those individual segments. We'll see. So thanks for watching, everyone. Goodbye.